Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Wilson. Some moments change everything in an instant. What I heard Rachel tell her mother when we came over for dinner wasn't just a betrayal. It was the revelation that the woman I'd proposed to, the woman I thought loved me, had been treating our entire relationship like a backup plan all along. Rachel and I had been dating for 2.5 years when I finally worked up the courage to propose to her. 2.5 years of what I believed was a genuine, growing love between two people who were building something meaningful together. She was a teacher, and I worked as a systems analyst for a regional bank. We had met through a mutual friend who felt we might be compatible. We started talking, and slowly everything began working out. Our courtship had unfolded naturally and comfortably. Within a few months of getting to know each other, I believed we were meant to be together. Rachel was warm and funny. She was also incredibly patient with children, which I found endearing, and had dreams of someday having a large family where she could pour all of her nurturing energy into raising kids who felt loved and supported. I had fallen in love with her gradually, the way you fall asleep, slowly at first, then all at once. When we talk about things, it makes me excited about the life we could build as a married couple. Perhaps it was just me, but I wanted her in my life. We maintained separate living arrangements throughout our relationship, which had worked well for both of us given our individual circumstances and the natural progression of our commitment to each other. Rachel shared a 2-bedroom apartment with her college roommate in a complex near her workplace that offered convenient access to her workplace. My living situation was a modest 1-bedroom apartment in a different part of town, closer to the downtown financial district where I worked, but far enough from the city center to be affordable on my bank analyst salary. The distance between our homes was manageable, about 20 minutes by car, and we had settled into a comfortable routine of spending 3 or 4 nights a week together, alternating between both places depending on our work schedules and social commitments. This arrangement had allowed us to maintain our individual independence. We had keys to each other's places, kept clothes and personal items at both apartments, and had integrated our social circles in ways that made us feel like a committed couple with a shared future. The proposal had been something I'd been planning for months, carefully considering everything from the timing to the location to the ring selection. I wanted it to be special and meaningful, something that would reflect the depth of my feelings for Rachel and the seriousness of my intentions for our future together. I had chosen a classic solitaire engagement ring with a 1-carat diamond, spending several weeks researching different jewelers and diamond qualities to ensure I was making the best choice within my budget. The ring represented a significant financial investment for me, but it felt important to choose something that would appropriately express the magnitude of my commitment to Rachel and our relationship. The proposal itself took place on a Saturday evening in early October. When I got down on one knee, Rachel's reaction was everything I had hoped for and more. She said yes immediately, as she threw her arms around me and told me how happy I had made her. The joy and excitement in her response made me feel confident that I was making the right decision and that we were both ready to take this next step together. After the initial celebration and excitement of the engagement had settled into a more practical planning mode, I suggested that we should visit her parents to share the news and officially ask for their blessing on our upcoming marriage. Rachel had mentioned several times during our relationship that family approval was important to her, and I wanted to demonstrate my respect for her family relationships and my serious intentions as her future husband. Rachel seemed enthusiastic about the idea of introducing me to her parents as her fiancé, and we arranged to have dinner at her family's home the following weekend. She had told me wonderful things about her parents throughout our relationship, how supportive they had been of her career choices, how they had maintained a strong marriage for over 30 years, and how they had created a warm, welcoming home where all of their children felt loved and valued. Her family lived about an hour outside the city in a suburban community, in the same house where Rachel had grown up. I was nervous, but excited about meeting her parents in my new role as their daughter's fiancé. I wanted to make a good impression and demonstrate that I was the kind of man who would be a worthy partner for their daughter. I spent considerable time thinking about what to wear, what topics of conversation might be appropriate, and how to present myself as someone mature, responsible, and deeply committed to Rachel's happiness. The drive to her parents' house that Sunday afternoon was filled with Rachel's excited chatter about her family and her anticipation of sharing our engagement news with them. She had already called to tell them about the proposal, but this would be their first opportunity to meet me as their future son-in-law and to celebrate our engagement in person. Rachel's family home was charming. The interior was decorated with family photos, children's artwork that had been preserved from years past, and the accumulated treasures of a family that had built a life together in this space. Her parents greeted us at the door with warm smiles and immediate acceptance that put me at ease despite my pre-dinner nervousness. Rachel's brother was also there for dinner, along with his wife and their 2 young children, who were Rachel's pride and joy as an aunt. The family dynamic was exactly what Rachel had described, warm, supportive, and filled with the kind of easy conversation and gentle teasing that comes from people who genuinely enjoy each other's company. The reception I received from Rachel's family was everything I could have hoped for. They asked thoughtful questions about my work, my background, and my plans for the future without making me feel like I was being interrogated or judged. They shared stories about Rachel's childhood and young adulthood that helped me understand more about the experiences that had shaped her into the woman I had fallen in love with. Throughout the early part of the evening, Rachel seemed relaxed and happy, clearly pleased with how well I was fitting in with her family and how enthusiastically they were welcoming me into their circle. She would catch my eye periodically and smile in a way that told me she was proud to have me there as her fiancé and excited about the life we were planning to build together. The dinner itself was a feast that showcased Rachel's mother's skills as a cook and the family's tradition of treating meals as opportunities for connection and celebration. The conversation flowed easily between topics ranging from current events to family memories to plans for our upcoming wedding. As we finished the main course, her mother excused herself to retrieve the dessert she had prepared for our celebration. She asked Rachel to come help her in the kitchen, which seemed like a natural opportunity for mother and daughter to have a private moment together while the rest of us continued our conversation at the dining room table. After they left for the kitchen, I found myself in conversation with other people at the table about various topics related to work, local politics, and the challenges of raising children in the modern world. But after a few minutes, I realized I needed to use the restroom and asked Rachel's brother for directions to the nearest bathroom. He pointed me toward a hallway that led past the kitchen toward the back of the house, explaining that the main floor bathroom was just beyond the kitchen area. I excused myself from the table and followed his directions, walking down the hallway toward the back of the house while the rest of the family continued their conversation. The restroom was indeed located just past the kitchen, and the layout of the house meant that I had to walk relatively close to the kitchen doorway to reach it. As I passed the kitchen on my way to the bathroom, I could hear Rachel and her mother talking quietly while they prepared the dessert, but I didn't pay attention to their conversation since it seemed like a private moment between them. I used the restroom quickly, wanting to return to the family gathering without being absent for too long. But as I emerged from the bathroom and began walking back toward the dining room, I found myself approaching the kitchen area again, and this time I could hear the conversation between Rachel and her mother more clearly. I had been planning to stop and ask if I could help them with anything, but as I got closer to the kitchen doorway, I could hear Rachel's mother asking Rachel a question that stopped me in my tracks. Her mother was asking Rachel what she intended to do about the other guy she had brought home about a month ago, now that she was engaged to me. The question was asked in a matter-of-fact tone that suggested this was a topic they had discussed before, and that her mother was genuinely curious about how Rachel planned to handle what was apparently a complicated situation. I stood frozen in the hallway, suddenly understanding that Rachel had been seeing someone else recently enough that her mother was aware of it and concerned about how this other relationship would affect our engagement. But what I heard next was even more devastating than learning about the existence of another man. Rachel told her mother that she was just managing me, that our relationship was essentially a placeholder while she waited to see what would develop with this other person. She explained that if the other guy asked her to marry him, she would end whatever relationship we had without hesitation, because he was clearly her preferred choice for a life partner. The casual way she discussed discarding our relationship, the matter-of-fact tone in which she described me as someone she was just managing, hit me like a physical blow. I was shocked to hear what the woman I planned to marry was saying about me and our relationship. Everything I thought I knew about her feelings, our future together, and the sincerity of her acceptance of my proposal was suddenly revealed to be false. I had been completely wrong about the depth of her commitment to me and the authenticity of her emotional investment in our relationship. The conversation I was overhearing revealed that Rachel viewed our engagement not as the beginning of our married life together, but as a safety net that she could discard as soon as her preferred option became available. I was her backup plan, the man she was willing to settle for if the person she really wanted didn't propose to her first. Standing there in the hallway, every moment of apparent intimacy, every expression of love, every conversation about our future together had been tainted by her secret preference for another man. Without saying a word, I stepped back from the kitchen doorway and began walking toward the front of the house. I couldn't confront Rachel in front of her family, couldn't create a scene that would embarrass everyone involved, and couldn't trust myself to speak without breaking down completely in front of people I had just met. I passed the dining room where the rest of the family was still engaged in conversation, managing to nod and smile in their direction without stopping to explain where I was going or why I was leaving. They seemed to assume I was stepping outside to make a phone call or get some fresh air, which was exactly the impression I wanted to give. I made it to my car without anyone questioning my departure or asking if anything was wrong. Once I was safely inside my vehicle, I sat there for several minutes trying to process what I had just learned and figure out how to respond to this devastating revelation about Rachel's true feelings and intentions. The drive home was a blur of confused thoughts and overwhelming emotions. I felt like I had been living in a fantasy world where I believed someone loved me, only to discover that I had been completely deluding myself about the reality of our relationship. The engagement ring I had given Rachel, the plans we had made for our wedding, the future I had envisioned for us together, all of it had been built on a foundation of lies and pretenses. About 30 minutes after I left her parents' house, Rachel called my cell phone asking where I was. Her voice sounded concerned, suggesting that the family had initially assumed I had stepped outside for some routine reason and had only become worried when I didn't return after a reasonable amount of time. She explained that they had looked for me around the house and property, thinking that I might have gone outside to make a business call or to get some air, but when they couldn't find me anywhere, they had started to worry that something might be wrong. Her tone was that of someone who was confused and concerned, but not yet understanding that anything serious had happened. I couldn't bring myself to explain what I had heard without breaking down completely, so I simply ended the call without providing any explanation for my sudden departure. The conversation I had overheard had left me feeling too emotionally raw and devastated to engage in the kind of confrontation that Rachel's call would inevitably lead to. She tried to reach out more and more over the following hours and days, leaving voicemails and sending text messages asking what had happened and why I had left so suddenly. Her messages progressed from confused concern to increasing anxiety as she realized that something serious had occurred and that I wasn't simply dealing with a work emergency or family crisis. I ignored her attempts to contact me for several days while I tried to process what I had learned and decide how to handle the situation. The revelation that she was managing me while waiting for another man to propose had destroyed my faith in everything about our relationship, and I needed time to think clearly about how to respond. Finally, I mustered the strength to call her back and tell her that I did not wish to see her ever again. When she pressed me for an explanation of my sudden change in behavior and my decision to end our engagement, I told her exactly what I had heard her say to her mother in the kitchen that evening. The moment I described her conversation with her mother, Rachel's tone changed dramatically from confused concern to desperate damage control. She immediately began trying to wiggle out of her statement, claiming that I had misunderstood what she meant, that she had been speaking hypothetically, or that the conversation had been taken out of context. She tried to explain that she had just been nervous about our engagement and had been expressing doubts to her mother that she didn't really mean. She claimed that she loved me and wanted to marry me, and that whatever I thought I had heard wasn't an accurate reflection of her true feelings or intentions. But I didn't have the energy to engage with her explanations and justifications. The words I had heard had been clear and unambiguous. She was managing me as a backup option while waiting for someone else to propose to her. No amount of reframing or recontextualization could change the fundamental reality of what she had revealed about her true feelings. I told Rachel that our engagement was over and that I didn't want to continue any kind of relationship with someone who viewed me as a placeholder while waiting for something better. The trust that had been the foundation of our relationship had been completely destroyed, and there was no way to rebuild it after learning how she really felt about me. She continued to call and text for several more days, alternating between apologies, explanations, and desperate pleas for another chance to prove her love and commitment. But her efforts only reinforced my decision to end our relationship, because they demonstrated that she was more concerned about losing her backup option than she was about the pain she had caused me. The process of ending our engagement required practical steps that were almost as painful as the emotional devastation. I had to get the engagement ring from her and return it, which wasn't easy. I had to notify friends and family members that our engagement was off. Each of these tasks was a reminder of the future I had planned and the dreams that had been destroyed by Rachel's deception. I also had to retrieve my belongings from Rachel's apartment and return the items she had kept in my place, a process that felt like dismantling the life we had built together over 2.5 years. Her roommate was present during the exchange, and I could see in her expression that she was aware that something serious had happened, but didn't understand the full scope of what had led to our breakup. The emotional recovery from discovering Rachel's betrayal took much longer than the practical aspects of ending our engagement. Learning that someone you've trusted with your heart has been deceiving you about their most fundamental feelings creates lasting damage to your ability to trust and form intimate relationships. I began working with a therapist to process what had happened and understand how I had missed the signs of Rachel's lack of genuine commitment during the years we were together. The counseling helped me realize that people who are capable of maintaining such elaborate deceptions are often skilled at compartmentalizing their emotions and presenting false personas that are convincing even to people who know them well. Through therapy, I came to understand that Rachel's ability to accept my proposal while privately planning to leave me for someone else wasn't something I could have detected or prevented. Someone who is determined to keep their options open while appearing committed can be incredibly effective at managing multiple relationships simultaneously. The experience taught me valuable lessons about the importance of authentic commitment in relationships and the difference between someone who loves you and someone who is just comfortable with the arrangement you provide. Rachel had been comfortable with our relationship as long as it served her purposes, but she had never been genuinely committed to building a life with me. Her willingness to accept my proposal while secretly hoping someone else would propose to her revealed a level of deception and selfishness that would have eventually destroyed our marriage even if I hadn't discovered it when I did. Learning the truth before the wedding, however painful, saved me from years of being married to someone who viewed me as a second choice. Looking back on that evening at her parents' house, I'm grateful that I happened to be in the right place at the right time to overhear Rachel's conversation with her mother. If I hadn't heard those words, I might have proceeded with a marriage that was built on lies and pretenses. The woman who didn't know I was standing behind her when she said she was managing me had revealed everything I needed to know about her true feelings and intentions. Sometimes the most important truths are revealed not through direct communication, but through the conversations people think no one else is hearing. The sound of those words in that kitchen, that she was just managing me, ended our relationship instantly and completely. But they also freed me from wasting more of my life on someone who was never genuinely invested in building a future together. Sometimes the most devastating revelations are also the most liberating ones.